A very strange day is coming to America. In short, a massive and surprising new transition could...
Now let's discuss some red cell disorders and pathological considerations. So disorders of the red blood cells are really going to either be anemia, which is reductions in the amount of red blood cells available, or less commonly, an increase in the amount of red blood cells available. We're going to call that polycythemia. So first, let's just briefly go over some of the nutritional requirements that our bodies need for appropriate erythropoiesis. And we really depend on vitamin B12 and folic acid, right? So your red blood cells really need those two. So they're essential for the maturation of the red blood cell. They're essential for DNA synthesis. When we don't have vitamin B12 and folic acid, what this does is that the red blood cells fail to proliferate rapidly. They grow in size. They become very huge. That's called macrocytic, right? The size of the cell is enlarged. And the cell membrane is flimsy, irregular, oval, and easily destructed.
I don't know what happened. I tried to add a filter to my camera so it didn't look so flat, and just crashed my program for like 4 years, so now we're back.
And easily damaged, which causes these red blood cells to have shorter half-lives, right? Half or 1/3 of what's normal, and what's normal was 120 days, as we remember. So, pernicious anemia. Interestingly now, in order for you to uptake vitamin B12, we need this factor called intrinsic factor, IF, intrinsic factor. It's a glycoprotein. It's released in our GI tract. Intrinsic factor is essential to vitamin B12 uptake. It binds vitamin B12 and it prevents it from being digested. Now, in certain disorders, we can have a lack of intrinsic factor or intrinsic factor availability. And when that happens, if you don't have intrinsic factor, you don't have vitamin B12 uptake. So what's the result of no vitamin B12 in this case? The result is, when we look at the blood smear under the microscope, we're going to notice cells that are enlarged in size, but they have the same color. And color tells you hemoglobin content. So in this case, there is no deficiency when it comes to hemoglobin. However, the cell size is enlarged. Therefore, pernicious anemia is an example that would fall under a macrocytic normochromic anemia. Macrocytic because the cell size is enlarged. Normochromic, it looks, in terms of the coloring of the cell, looks normal because there's no problem with the hemoglobin, but it's still an anemia. And this is what it would look like in terms of the coloring of the cell looks normal. Normal because there's no problem with the hemoglobin, but it's still an anemia. And this is what it would look like under the microscope, and you can see how the size looks significantly enlarged. However, when we're staining the hemoglobin, the color looks fine, so that's a normal color that we would expect. So we talked about some nutritional needs. Let's briefly touch on the iron cycle. So 67% of our total body iron is going to be found in heme, which is part of hemoglobin in the red blood cells, and also in muscle cells and myoglobin. 30% is going to be stored in the macrophages and hepatic parenchymal cells. 3% of our iron is lost daily in sweat, urine, bile, and minor bleeding. And finally, 25 milligrams of iron is what's required daily for erythropoiesis. So we need about 25 milligrams of iron. However, only 1 to 2 come from your diets. And the remaining of that 25, so the other 23 to 24 milligrams of iron, comes from the continuous recycling of red blood cells. So if you look here are your red blood cells more aged or abnormal. They become destroyed by the macrophages and they start breaking them down. Hemoglobin is broken down into its components, the protein component, globin, and heme, right, which binds iron. So the iron is released, and then you have bilirubin. Bilirubin is taken up by the liver and secreted with bile. Right, so bilirubin is secreted with bile. Iron then is recycled, right? It can be stored in the liver, it can be stored in the spleen, or it can be directly released into the blood where it goes to the bone marrow, so it can be reused and recycled to generate new RBCs. Disorders in which you have obstruction, right? So the liver, the bile duct is obstructed, can lead to accumulation of bilirubin. And accumulation of bilirubin leads to disorders, right? Because it's toxic, it can cause jaundice, right? So there's going to be yellow coloration of the skin, you can see that yellowish color on the eyes as well. And that we would call that obstructive jaundice. And the problem here, or the etiology of this pathology, has to do with obstruction when it comes to bile secretion. But we also have what's called hemolytic jaundice, and hemolytic jaundice can be observed in infants. And what happens is when the baby is born, it has red blood cells from its mother. But once it's born, its body is going to start breaking down the red blood cells of the mother. And as a result of that significant breakdown of red blood cells, you may have an increase in bilirubin content that the body is unable to metabolize. The liver just doesn't have the capacity to metabolize that much amount of bilirubin, and that can lead to hemolytic jaundice, and that needs to be dealt with as well. So bilirubin can cause jaundice. Jaundice can be hemolytic or obstructive in its etiology. Okay, so Microacetic Hypochromatenemias are another type of anemias, and they're characterized by smaller cells and reduced amounts of hemoglobin. And these kinds of anemias are going to be related to disorders of iron metabolism or disorders of globin synthesis, right, which leads to changes in hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, basically. Iron deficiency anemia is the most common type of anemia worldwide, and the main problem here is just nutritional iron deficiency or excessive blood loss, right? It can also be metabolic or functional deficiencies, and manifestations happen, and the manifestations of this anemia start showing when the serum hemoglobin levels drop to 7 or 8 grams per deciliter. And you start seeing these patients are going to be fatigued, they have weakness, shortness of breath, pale earlobes and palms, and conjunctiva and all that. So actually, when hemoglobin levels fall under 8, that's a relative contraindication against physical therapy. So you have to use it's not an absolute contraindication, especially if it's expected. Like if a patient is post-surgery, you expect them to have lower levels of hemoglobin. And so you do want to take a symptoms-based approach with these patients. So by no means it's an absolute contraindication, but you should be reviewing the charts, and you should be looking at some of these lab values. And if you see hemoglobin content under 8 or below, you should be worried, and you should just be careful as you start seeing those patients. This is a blood smear as well. That's very interesting because here this patient received a recent blood transfusion, and so you can see red blood cells that are original to this patient and red blood cells from a transfusion. So look at these, right? Look at the hemoglobin content and compare them to these, right? And you can compare and contrast, and you can see that wide difference, right? That's why this kind of anemia is described as microcytic hypochromatenemias. We also have normocytic normochromic anemias, right, which are characterized by red blood cells that are normal in size and normal in hemoglobin content, but the problem is that they are insufficient in number, and many different pathologies can cause this. So you may have aplastic anemia due to dysfunctional bone marrow. You may have an acute blood loss, right? Leading to this kind of anemia as well. This can happen after surgery, for example. You may have acquired hemolytic anemia, in which there's autoimmune diseases that lead to a small number, and this can be due to multiple different causes. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, and now we're going to talk about myeloproliferative red blood cell disorders, in which now you have an increase in red blood cell content. The amount of red blood cells that we have is increased. In anemia, it was decreased, and in this case, it's increased. These are much less common compared to anemias, by the way. So, and we would call this polycythemia, and this is when you would have an overproduction of red blood cells. And polycythemia may be relative, and it may be absolute. So when you're looking at relative polycythemia, that can be simply dehydration. Remember, hematocrit, or the percentage of red blood cells to the total blood volume, it's a percentage. And 92% of plasma, which makes, so plasma, let's write this down. So plasma makes up 55% of blood, and water makes up 92% of plasma, right? So when you're dehydrated, your plasma volume is going to significantly decrease. And what that means is that the percentage of your red blood cells to just the total blood volume, this percentage is going to go up, even though the absolute number of red blood cells did not change. But what changed here is that blood volume decreased due to the decrease in plasma volume, right? And the result of that is you have polycythemia, but it's relative, it's not absolute, because the absolute number of red blood cells did not change. What about absolute polycythemia? Well, absolute polycythemia may be primary or secondary depending on the etiology. So primary absolute What about absolutes? You have polycythemia, but it's relative. It's not going to go up. It's a percentage. Dehydration. Remember, hematocrit, or the percentage of red blood cells to the total blood volume, it's a percentage. And 92% of plasma, which makes, so plasma, let's write this down. So plasma makes up 55% of blood. And water makes up 92% of plasma, right? So when you're dehydrated, your plasma volume is going to significantly decrease. And what that means is that the percentage of your red blood cells to just the total blood volume, this percentage is going to go up, even though the absolute number of red blood cells did not change. But what changed here is that blood volume decreased due to the decrease in plasma volume, right? And the result of that is you have polycythemia, but it's relative. It's not absolute because the absolute number of red blood cells did not change. What about absolute polycythemia? Well, absolute polycythemia may be primary or secondary, depending on the etiology. So primary absolute polycythemia is when you have an abnormality of the stem cells in the bone marrow that are just leading to continuous and excessive production of red blood cells. And the pathology that's most well known for that is polycythemia vera. You may also have secondary absolute polycythemias in which there's a secondary cause. For example, a tumor that's releasing EPO, right? Or chronic hypoxia and leading to chronically increased levels of EPO, right? And then we know that EPO stimulates red blood cell proliferation. But that's a secondary cause. So if we're talking again about polycythemia, we broke it down into relative, right? And we broke it down into absolute, and then the absolute can be broken down into primary and secondary. So primary, polycythemia vera, and secondary can be the example of excessively increased EPO production due to a tumor, for example. So polycythemia vera,
Hello, viewer. What's up?
and secondary can be the example of excessively increased EPO production due to a tumor, for example. So polycythemia vera, right, which is a primary absolute polycythemia, it's an abnormal disease characterized by uncontrolled proliferation of not just red blood cells, but red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So there's a problem with the stem cells in the bone marrow. It's insidious, and manifestations happen due to the increase in red blood cell mass and hematocrit, which leads to increased blood viscosity and hypercoagulopathy, right? Blood is just much harder to flow. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of these cardiovascular manifestations. So, and hypercoagulopathy, right? Blood is just much harder to flow. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of these cardiovascular manifestations. So let's go back to anemia, right? Let's go back to anemia and let's talk about some of the consequences, the physiological consequences of anemia and what it can cause. So if you have anemia, right, a drop in red blood cells or hemoglobin content, this is going to lead to a drop in the amount of oxygen in the blood, or hypoxemia. Right? Xemia here is telling you that we're talking about hypoxia in the blood. This causes tissue hypoxia, the amount of oxygen that's reaching the tissues. Well, what are some of the consequences of that? This leads to ischemia, causing claudication, muscle weakness, pallor, respiratory changes, central nervous system disturbances, dizziness, fainting, lethargy, as well as changes in other systems as well. Well, your body has to respond to that, and it's going to activate a number of compensatory mechanisms, and mainly they're going to be cardiovascular mechanisms. So your heart is going to strive to increase cardiac output. Remember, cardiac output was the product of heart rate and stroke volume, so both of them are going to increase. So when you're looking at increasing cardiac output, well, increasing heart rate, let's not forget that when you're increasing heart rate, you're also increasing the oxygen demand. But we don't have enough oxygen, right? Because we already have hypoxia, and we're further increasing the oxygen demand, and this may lead to angina, right? It's a problem. However, the increase in oxygen demand, right, should, under normal conditions, stimulate EPO release, which should increase RBC production, which is a compensatory mechanism. Now, the problem is, what if you have a disease that's affecting the kidneys and you're unable to do that? Well, that's a problem. We also are going to increase stroke volume, and that can happen through multiple mechanisms. So let's not forget that kidneys are going to sense this as well, activate the RAS system. Well, once the RAS system is activated, the RAS wants to do sodium and water retention and extracellular fluid expansion, right, which is what you see here. And when you have an increase in extracellular fluid, that is also going to contribute to an increase in stroke volume as well. So all in all, what we see is a hyperdynamic circulation in the cases of anemia. You can hear cardiac murmurs if you're auscultating this patient's heart, but also because of the anemia and the high demand for cardiac output in this case, these patients are susceptible to cardiac failure or heart failure, which is a terminal. Outcome that can occur with due to anemia. So and then heart failure, there's a lot to say about that and consequences of that, but let's just understand how anemia can lead to heart failure in this scenario. And this is a more basic breakdown of that previous slide, right? So anemia, there's a drop in viscosity, drop in resistance to blood flow, which leads to an increase in blood flow. So with anemia, you have that increase in blood flow. However, the amount of oxygen that the blood is carrying is low, so don't forget that. There's a decrease in oxygen transport, therefore hypoxia. Remember, when our tissues have low oxygen content, this stimulates the microcirculation to vasodilate. All in all, again, increasing cardiac output, increasing workload, increasing risk of heart failure as well. All right. Okay, and just a slide just briefly goes over what we talked about. What about polycythemia? All right. Okay, and just a slide just briefly goes over what we talked about. What about polycythemia and the effects of polycythemia? Okay, and just a slide just briefly goes over what we talked about. What about polycythemia and the effects of polycythemia on the circulatory system? So with anemia, you had a decrease in viscosity, which led to an increase in blood flow. However, that blood flow, it wasn't carrying oxygen, so it wasn't tied with an increase in oxygen. In the case of polycythemia, you have an increase in viscosity, which leads to a decrease in flow. Your blood flow becomes very sluggish, and that decrease in blood flow results in a decrease in venous return, which could affect cardiac output. However, polycythemia also means there's an increase in blood cells, which means there's an increase in blood volume, right? So when there's an increase in volume, that means we should have an increase in venous return. So what happens is you have reasons to have an increased venous return, and you have reasons that would lead to a decrease in venous return. So the end result really is that they're going to balance each other out, and you're going to have a normal cardiac output with these patients. However, beyond certain limits, they may develop hypertension. But the effects of polycythemia, as you see here in the circulatory system, are not as pronounced as the effects of anemia, as we have seen here. But again, this is all relative depending upon the significance or how significant the pathology or the underlying pathology is. All right, thank you very much.
Your body's only healthy when your hormones are balanced, and that's why so many guys suffer from low T.
let's start talking about hemostasis or blood coagulation. So hemostasis is the prevention or the arrest of blood loss, right? Again, blood coagulation. However, if it's pathological, that is thrombosis. A thrombosis or a pathological coagulation is when you have a blood clot but no trauma, right? So the vessel is intact, but your blood is clotting. So whenever we have hemostasis, we need to realize that it's a process that involves contribution from different factors. The platelets, the clotting factors, and the endothelium all play together in order to initiate and complete the process of hemostasis or blood clot formation. Clotting factors are proteins within the plasma, and we'll talk more about them later. The mechanisms of hemostasis, we have these 4 distinct stages that we will be discussing in a little bit of detail. So first you have the vascular constriction, the blood vessel constricts. You have the platelet plug formation, or what's called primary hemostasis. Then you have the blood clot formation itself, right? The coagulation of blood clot. And this has to do with fibrin, so just remember that. And that's secondary hemostasis. But then there's also clot resorption, right? There's the clot needs to be organized, and eventually it needs to be removed from the bloodstream. Right? The clot needs to be organized, and eventually it needs to be removed from the bloodstream. So looking at vascular constriction, once there is a trauma, you're going to get this reflex vasoconstriction. Immediately after the trauma, the vascular smooth muscle cells are going to contract. That's due to multiple different mechanisms, as you see here. But namely, your endothelial cells, right, as well as platelets, can release endothelin-1, which is a very strong vasoconstrictor. So the endothelium plays a pretty big role in all of this, and in vascular hemostasis, vascular homeostasis in general. So they release vasodilating factors like nitric oxide, but they also release vasoconstricting factors like endothelin. But there's also other stimulating factors that can occur. There's nervous reflexes. Thromboxane A2 also plays a role in this as well. The contribution of vascular constriction to hemostasis is somewhat minimal, right? It's, if there's a significant injury, then vascular constriction is not going to be enough. So the next stage is minimal. Right? It's, if there's a significant injury, then vascular constriction is not going to be enough. So the next stage is the formation of the platelet plug, or what's called primary hemostasis. And before we jump into that, let's just briefly discuss platelets. So platelets are formed in the bone marrow. They generate from the megakaryocytes, right, which is this huge cell, and it starts just budding off little bits and pieces, which are going to be your platelets. They have a very short half-life of about 8 to 12 days, and their concentration, or the amount that we have in our bloodstream, are going to be somewhere between 150 to 300,000 per microliter. They have certain characteristics. They can contract, so they have actin, myosin, and thrombostenin, which allows them to contract. Unlike red blood cells, right, which had no ER or Golgi apparatus, platelets do have some residual endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus, so they can actually synthesize some enzymes. They can make prostaglandins. They can make platelet-derived growth factor. They can store calcium. They have mitochondria. They can make ATP and ADP, which is going to be important in the process of blood clot formation. But also, their membrane is important. They have surface glycoproteins, and these glycoproteins are very important when it comes to holding on to the injured endothelium. These platelets are going to stick to the injured endothelium, but they're also going to repel intact endothelium, because it's absolutely important that we do not form a blood clot when there is no injury, right? Remember, if there's no injury and we have a blood clot, that's a pathology. That's thrombosis. We don't want that. So these glycoproteins actually play an important role. The phospholipids are actually important for blood clotting, and just remember that the negative charge on these phospholipids activate the intrinsic pathway, right? So you may not know what that is right now, but you will know at the end of this lecture. So what is it? pathway, right? So you may not know what that is right now, but we'll know at the end of this lecture. So when it comes to what happens in the formation of the platelet plug or primary hemostasis. So first thing, you have an injury to the vessel wall, right? And so the endothelium is exposed and the subendothelium starts getting in contact with blood. What happens is you start seeing these proteins called the von Willebrand factor exposed on collagen at the subendothelium. The platelets have glycoproteins that actually attach to the von Willebrand factor and start sticking to that surface, right? Specifically, glycoprotein 1b, right? You don't need to focus on that name. It's if you know it's just glycoproteins attached to the von Willebrand factor, that's great. What then happens is they start changing their shape, right? From these smooth discs, they start becoming spiky and looking like these sea urchins. That helps them increase their surface area. And then what's next is they start releasing these granules. And when they release the granules that helps them increase their surface area. And then what's next is they start releasing these granules. And when they release the granules have these certain chemical components that are pretty important, including ATP, thromboxane A2, among other things, including calcium, right? And calcium is very important for the next step, which is blood clot formation. So they release their granules, and the release of these granules allows for recruitment of more platelets to the area. So more platelets start coming, and they start aggregating, right? They start building and aggregating, forming the platelet plug. However, this platelet plug at this time is still not strong enough, right? We need one more step. I do want to point that the process of shape changing and granule release is sometimes collectively referred to as platelet activation. All right, and so here you can actually shape changing. and granular release is sometimes collectively referred to as platelet activation. All right, and so here you can actually see this under the microscope. You can see that platelets and white blood cells start adhering to the subendothelium, and this is just a zoomed or magnification of what you see here. And finally in C here, right, you see a mature platelet plug. This is actually a thrombus forming, but you see fibrin, a fibrin network. A fibrin network, right? And the fibrin network is the next step that we're going to talk about that helps stabilize this platelet plug, and this is what actually forms that blood clot. Right, so secondary hemostasis or blood clot formation, it happens, it takes about 15 to 20 seconds. When there's severe vascular trauma. An occlusive clot, a clot that will actually stop blood, will happen and take about 3 to 6 minutes, unless you have a very large defect, in which in that case, blood clotting may just not be enough. It depends on the size of the injury. In about 20 to 60 minutes, the clot will start retracting. In about 1 to 2 weeks, you're going to get fibroblasts coming to the area, and then which are going to relay fibrous tissue, and then that fibrous tissue needs to be, which is scar tissue, is going to be organized, and you can have a more permanent fix to the injury. So the blood clot formation happens with what's called the coagulation cascade, which is a series of enzymatic reactions and a series of events. And so you really have these two pathways, coagulation cascade pathways, that we will briefly touch upon. But you have what's called the extrinsic pathway, and that is initiated by what's called tissue factor here. So tissue factor is going to help with that.
What's up, Jordan? Just learning stuff, trying to, at least. My camera's about to die, you can see that on the bottom left, but going over blood clotting. It's fun. I got class in like an hour. What about you? Yeah, for PT school. I'm in week 7 right now of this, and I've got 3 more weeks of this quarter, and I do a lab immersion thing, and then I got like 2 more weeks of that. So it's pretty fast paced, honestly, because I'm taking... Oh, nice, you're working with Ray? I'm sure he's told you I did that before, so it's a good stint. I did that a long time, and my brother, so you, me, and my brother got something in common. How's your, I think it was your back, or was it your leg that you were dealing with? I don't remember. I guess if you're working with Ray, maybe it's a little bit better. No, it's not, Rachel. It's, this is fictional. It said so. feel that, Jordan. I got some back stuff too. I think it's from all the sitting I've been doing. True. Rachel, I feel it's on YouTube, so I feel like if it was in a like centralized spot, then it would be different. But it's on YouTube, so anybody can get to this. And also, yeah, my two view stream is gonna get taken down. Don't worry, the music is royalty free as well. I cover my bases. Or are you talking about the dual stream YouTube and Twitch? There's a lot. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on here that may not be what should be happening. Jordan, I hope you have a good day at work today. I know how hard that can be. Sometimes I'll get home and I'd be like, I just burned calories for 8 hours straight, and that was it. Yeah, it's so good, Rachel. I kind of, I know you're not supposed to stream to both at the same time once you're like partnered or something, but I'm not partnered, so I just do both, and whichever one actually ends up like getting picked up, I'll stop streaming on the other one. Jordan, yeah, I like it too. It was like you just kind of like get into it and you just do your thing, but you can't disagree. Like it is tough running around all day. I definitely ate a lot more. No, I'm not. I'm like close to being partnered on YouTube, but I need more watch time. Like I have the subscribers, and I have the like all the, there's like 4 things. 1 subscribers. The one I don't have is watch time. I'm only like a quarter of the way there, which is kind of dumb. So you need 1,000 subscribers. You have to have 4,000 hours of like watch time within the last year. So it's like a constantly rolling like time frame. And then you have to like have your phone, your phone number verified and your email verified. Those are easy. And then I think you have to have like an active like AdSense accounts, which I do, but there's nothing to do with it. So, yeah, which is funny actually, because I do technically have enough hours with YouTube Shorts, which are like the vertical video ones, but they don't count towards your watch time. Oh, yeah, I believe it. You have to have like 5 or 10 or something like that. I know there's 2 different levels on Twitch. There's like affiliated and then partnered. And I think affiliate is first or something. But as long as you just get like a couple people in there, if you're just hanging out, then I guess you're good. Can you lose affiliate? Like if people stop watching you on an average amount, do they take it away?
And then you have the intrinsic
Advertise to add up for like a month. Yeah.
pathway,
Like
and that can be initiated by the negative charges on phospholipids, for example. So both of these pathways are going to basically activate thrombin. So
I know. That's what I was saying. It'd be sad. I have a friend that used to stream a long time ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I think I guess she technically still has it, even though she hasn't streamed in like a couple of years.
thrombin is the key regulator in all of this. So
that's what I'm hoping the same thing happens for mine though, like with YouTube, that I don't, if I lose that concurrent hours, that I don't lose it. It seems. Yeah, Jordan, it's tough. YouTube's tough. I mean, like mine, mine isn't even off the ground technically either. It's not like it used to be, Jordan. Like they really don't at least on YouTube. I don't know how Twitch is, but they really don't like push your content outside of the like bubble that you're in, and you kind of have to like rather kind of have to get lucky, in my opinion, and it just somehow you get a video that like gets picked up and you gain viewers that come back, or you get like really spammy and you spam like really short videos, like time-wise videos that somehow get picked up. But that doesn't happen that often. And like, I don't know if you see, Jordan, but like I've got like I have a lot of subscribers, but like if you look, like I only have 2 people in here, and like normal videos that aren't shorts, I mean I get like 20 or 30 views, so it's like it's such a weird thing. So I feel you. We're kind of in the same boat. Rami, what's up? Hello, Mother, as well. Yeah, that makes sense, Rachel. I don't know if she technically still has it, but when she used to stream, she used to have a lot of viewers. But I like, I feel like it makes sense that they're attracted. You probably agree in that agreement to like continue to like streaming. Like I'm sure that's part of the agreement. Yeah, you gotta do some numbskull content, Jordan, if you want to get picked up. Yeah, Rachel, I definitely do think. Oh, where'd my camera go? Oh, we gotta switch to this one now. My actual camera's battery died. 1 second. Oh wow, that's way too big. Here we go. My actual camera is has a battery that I can't charge while I'm using it. But I think it has something to do with like if people don't click on your notification, like that you're going live that often, then it just won't send them out again. I've noticed that. It's like you have those people that are subscribed to you or like follow you, but if like once or twice they choose to not watch it, they like won't send out notification again for like months. Because sometimes I'll get people in here that like I haven't seen in months. But and I'm like, where have you been? And they've been subscribed the whole time. So it kind of hurts. So you got to get rid of my hand cam here. That's not the wrong one. Maybe we can do something like this. Get a little bit of. I baked in Model Citizen into my camera border, so I can't get rid of that. That kind of sucks. Oh. Spain without the S, yeah. 1 second, I'm gonna plug my battery in. Yeah, I've noticed that, especially with longer videos. Like, I'm sure it's the same on Twitch, that you maybe get a couple of the same people, but once they're gone, they're kind of gone until they like purposely seek you out, which they may not always do.
Going to do so both of these pathways are going to activate this guy, right? Thrombin. What thrombin does is that it breaks down fibrinogen.
So Rachel, send me your
into fiber.
email so I can send this to you.
Right. So that's what.
Oh wait, you already did.
Now I need.
So yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to send this to you. I'm trying to dox everyone I know. What am I doing here? Yeah, that's cool. It's good to have people like that. I have some consistent people on YouTube as well. Alright. Dude, why doesn't OneNote ever work? This is awesome. Can I copy link to page? It's not synced. I know it's not. because I'm looking at it. Come on, there it is. What's up? Mark Wade? For real? Okay, well, this is insane. There it is. Let's see. Copy link to page. Yeah, Jordan, go for it. How many days a week are you working out? That's first thing I'd ask, probably. I know, it is you for real. A little bit too loud? Okay. Turn it down. Oh, why was it that high? Alright, how do I email? That's my second thing. Three to 6, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, 6 is definitely the top limit. I work out 5. And I feel like that is about like my top limit, considering. And that's me not like doing manual labor like you are. You're finishing course notes, Rachel? What the heck? For what? For anatomy? Right, I'm sending this to you, Rachel, but don't change it, because I don't know how to send you a like a non-editable link. So just look at it, please. Like, wait, what did I just do? Can I send you a copy? No, all I can do is copy a link to it. So here you go. Wait, I can just send it to you in Discord. I'm gonna do that. Oh, yikes. That is the largest link I've ever seen in my life. Get ready for that. What is going on? Let's see. Copy. I don't know why. Oh, wait, I think I can share it with you. Alright, copy. Where'd it go? Oh, alright. I got 2 of them now. Yes, Jordan. Let me send that to you on Instagram. I think that's the only place I have your number. Sending it to you. Alright, I sent it to you on Instagram. I don't know how much you're on there. Have you been turning them in, Rachel? Because I haven't. Since there's credit. I've just been doing them like the week of the anatomy test, because that seems to stick in my brain better. At least that's what I've found. You need the points. Yeah, I don't yet, but I'm sure. I mean, it could help in the end. I'm sure we all appreciated that, like, what, 6-point bump that we got on the last thing. That won't fit. Nice. Yeah, it's not bad. I feel bad for the couple people that I saw that even with that bump that we got on the last test, some people still got like a 52% on that test. That hurts, I'm sure. I know, that's kind of how I feel on a health promotion. I'm at like 88 right now, and that one's not as hard. I haven't been spending any time on that. It was hard. I don't know if it was hard enough to get a 50% on it, but Maybe close to it.
Needs calcium for this process, and it needs other factors as well. But you get fibrin, and fibrin is that mesh that starts being laid down over this platelet plug, basically holding
Mom,
it together.
Jordan
right?
said
And
hi
kinda,
to you.
stabilizing this whole plug and actually forming the essence of the blood clot. All right, so just a brief look on the coagulation cascade. Again, you have this intrinsic pathway, and so you see here this factor is inactive, it becomes active, then once active, it activates another one, and activates another one. All in all, these two
It was
are
a
going
hard
to work
test,
together in order again
and
to convert prothrombin, or this complex is going to be
prepared
called prothrombin
for how
activator.
much,
To activate thrombin, thrombin starts cleaving fibrinogen into fibrin units.
there
The
was.
fibrin units start polymerizing, right? So once the fibrin is active, they're these they're monomers, but they start attaching to each other, which is called polymerization, and they start forming these long fibrin threads, right? Which again are basically your blood clot. And so I don't need you to really worry about memorizing or knowing these different factors. What I do want you to know is that we have two pathways, the extrinsic pathway and the intrinsic pathway, as you see.
There you go. Jordan just said hi to you.
See here, they converge and they meet at the common pathway, and this is what's important. So both of them are going to activate prothrombin activator, which is a complex of clotting proteins or clotting factors with calcium. Prothrombin activator activates or converts prothrombin into thrombin, and what thrombin does is that it activates fibrin by turning fibrinogen into fibrin, and once we have fibrin available, fibrin is going to automatically polymerize with other fibrin, forming this meshwork that you see here. And this meshwork is going to trap everything in it, everything in that location. So it traps platelets, it traps white blood cells, red blood cells, whatever, you name it. If it's there, it's not going anywhere. So the blood clot is just fibrin trapping whatever is in that location.
Oh, there's two parts to this one. That hurts.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like, "What the f is in your mug?" And I would just tell them.
So the rate limiting factor in
Yeah, that hurts. I'm looking at that now. It just keeps going. 7.9. Okay. That's not as bad. I thought there was 16 parts, and then some of the parts had extra points, but there's like 16 total. That is better. That's not as okay. I'm okay then. Nice. I'm on 7.5, I guess. Where are you? You're almost done. Where'd he go?
And blood coagulation really
Set it on
is
L2X.
the formation of the prothrombin activator, not the subsequent steps. So once you have prothrombin activator, and that's active, then this process is going to get going. Prothrombin is formed by the liver, and your body's continuously using it. Now, vitamin K is very important for the activation of prothrombin, but not just prothrombin, it's also very important for the activation of other clotting factors as well. So blood thinners, certain medications like Coumadin, how it works is that it inhibits the synthesis of the vitamin K dependent clotting factors, right? But then this process takes time, and so Coumadin doesn't work right away. So you give Coumadin, but because Coumadin works on the clotting factors that will be synthesized in the future in the liver, whatever clotting factors that are already present in the bloodstream are not going to be inhibited, right? So that's why Coumadin is good for long-term therapy, but if you need a blood thinner right away, Coumadin or warfarin is not the drug of choice. But anyways, it works on these vitamin K, it inhibits enzymes responsible and important for utilizing vitamin K to make these clotting factors, and so that's how it works. Formation of the prothrombin activator, we mentioned.
Oh.
you have the intrinsic pathway and negatively charged phospholipid surfaces, which are present on activated platelets, and the subendothelium are what's going to activate the intrinsic pathway, while in the extrinsic pathway you need tissue factor, and tissue factor is released by the damaged endothelial cells, right?
It's a lot.
Activate the intrinsic pathway, while in the extrinsic pathway you need tissue factor, and tissue factor is released by the damaged endothelial cells, right? That's how you get it. The extrinsic pathway is explosive. It's much, much faster, and it can get activated in less than 15 seconds. However, the intrinsic pathway is a lot slower, 1 to 6 minutes, as you see here. So both of them work, but the extrinsic one is much, much quicker. All right, fibrinogen. Now, fibrinogen is 6 minutes, as you see here. So both of them work, but the extrinsic one is much, much quicker. All right, fibrinogen. Now, fibrinogen is the inactive form of fibrin, and fibrin is the most important thing, or the end result, right? Let's not say the most important, let's say it's the end result. So fibrinogen is formed also in the liver. It has a very large molecular size, so because of that, it doesn't leak out of the bloodstream, and it remains confined there, because you don't want fibrinogen in the interstitial space. You don't want any clots forming there. But if you have an increase in capillary permeability, you may get some fibrinogen. Leaking out,
Jordan,
and
if
that
you're
may
here,
cause some clotting in the interstitial space.
Hope you have fun
It's activated.
mowing lawns
So
today.
you may get some
Just
fibrinogen
get in the
leaking
zone
out,
and just
and that
make
may
it
cause
happen.
some.
And I'll check my email whenever you send that to me. Oh, you already sent it to me. Are you here? Let's see what we're doing here. Jordan, are you in here? Oh, okay. You're here. So is each day... So I'm looking here. You have core, chest, and tris with a 1. And then when you get to 2, is that a separate day? Or is that the same day? Or are these 2 different chest and tri days? Because if 1 and 2 are the same day, that's way too much. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's way too much. But I'm thinking that's maybe those are different days. Separate day. Okay, good. Because I was like, if you're doing the all in one day, you were doing way too much. Hulk out. Okay. So I would say that you do. Okay, you have back 2 different places. Okay. I don't have the math on this specifically, but you seem to have a lot of chest-focused exercises, and only like, so you have 3 chest ones, and then shoulders is the you have a couple presses as well. So you may be overloading a little bit on pressing movements, in my opinion. I know you said those are different days, but generally you'll want to stay between like 15 to 20 sets, in my opinion, total for each muscle group. So legs can handle a little bit more than that. They can handle like 25 or so, but like smaller muscles like your biceps or your triceps can handle a little bit lower than that. So maybe like 12 to 15 sets. So just on your chest and tricep day, you have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So just on, yeah, okay. I would say just on your first day, though, you already have 21 sets of pressing movements. And I think you would be a little better off spreading out those movements. So probably I would maybe cut, if you're working out 4 to 5 days a week. Let's say you're working out 4 to 5 days a week. If you're staying with that, I would try and spread out that volume, specifically with pressing movements, to maybe only like 8 sets the first day, and then come back to chest later in the week, and do the other half. Because I think, I mean, I don't know how you're feeling recovery wise, but you are likely getting some diminishing returns on that many sets of pressing movements, just because that is a lot to do in one day. And then if you're doing it twice a week, which is what I would recommend, then that definitely is a lot. I think you would benefit from going harder on about half as much volume on pressing movements. So like this first day, core, chest, tries, I would start with a bench press. So that's a good start, a bench press. So do your 3x10 there. And then, so okay, here I don't mean to like just change this entirely, but one thing I would do is maybe do a bench press on one day, because you have two compound presses here. You have a bench press and an incline press. I would maybe split your pressing days. Are you trying to stay with like a push-pull legs kind of thing? That seems kind of what you're doing, because you have chest and tries, and then you have back and bicep. That's a pull, and then you have a leg. So assuming you're doing a push-pull leg set, I think you should do what you have here, at least this first one, is do a bench press on your day 1 and an incline press on your day 2. And then that's 6 sets already. And then on the day you do bench press, do your tricep extensions that you have here, and maybe your I'm not sure what French press is, but maybe do your French press or your flies. And then on your day 2, do your incline, to alternate your incline and your decline press, because those are kind of specialty compounds. And then do like 3 or 4 other accessory pushes. So like medicine ball push-ups, overhead rope tricep extensions. Those are good. Because I'm willing to bet, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet that maybe you're probably getting pretty fatigued towards the end of this, and you're not able to give your like full intensity towards the end of these workouts. Because I mean, like, even I would be pretty tired from, like, I would be tired from this. I would either be tired, or I would be able to do the first 3 or 4 pretty well, and then towards the end, like, have to do some of these like way too light. So something I would say, if you're doing an exercise, so let's say tricep extensions. If the weight that you can do on tricep extensions changes based on when you're doing it in the workout, you're probably doing a little bit too much volume. So 10 15 pounds difference is fine. But if you were to start the workout, let's say you start with the tricep rope press down, you start that, it's the very first thing you do, and you can do 60 pounds or like 70 pounds. But if that is fitting into the end of your workout and you can only do 20, or you can only do 10 or something, these are relative weights, then you're more being limited by just general fatigue than actual strength. And then that's just diminishing return. So I think and fatigue is fine, but if we're doing exercises that you're completely only limited by fatigue and not by strength, where it's like, wow, my muscles are just tired. Because I'm sure you'll know there's a difference between being tired and like having a good workout and being just generally fatigued. So I think, based on what you're saying here, so I would say I think it's better to do too much than too little, I think. But I think you can bring it back a little bit, and maybe just like on a piece of paper at some point, try and limit your weekly volume between 15 to 20 sets per muscle, if that makes sense. And kind of keep in mind that like biceps will fit into back and triceps will fit into chest. But I think you would really benefit from decreasing volume and increasing intensity on that decreased volume, if that makes sense. And definitely start your workout with the more compound lifts. So I wouldn't recommend doing decline or incline or general bench like last, because those are ones that you're more likely to injure yourself in if you're especially fatigued. The ones that you can do last every single time are like accessory movements, so like triceps or like tricep extensions or like curls or something like that, because you're not going to hurt yourself doing that. And I think I would maybe say the same thing about let's see, legs are probably fine. But again, so like I don't think I would squat and deadlift in the same day. When I run push-pull legs, I tend to have like a constantly cycling week, if that makes sense. So push-pull leg, push-pull leg, push-pull leg, that's 6 days. But if you don't have 6 legs, good luck, Mom. Go mold those mines. Like let's say I can only work 5 days a week. Just push-pull leg, rest, push-pull leg, rest, and just let that kind of fill your week, if that makes sense. So you're not always going to push in the same day. You're not always going to pull in the same day. So honestly, my recommendation. So I think the compound movements you should stick with are bench. So for pressing, bench, and then I don't know if you overhead press at all, but I think the best push movements are just bench and overhead press. So that's just like, pushing overhead with a bar, and it can be light. The good leg movements to stick with are definitely squat. I don't know if you can front squat with your neck, but front squat is good. And deadlift is a good one too. And then a good pull are rows. And I guess that's it. But I think you're definitely on the right track here, because you've got the you got it divided well. I think keep doing compounds, and this is definitely on the right track. I think you're just doing a little too much, and I think you're probably getting yourself tired too quick. But I bet this is helping. Like, I'm sure you feel better than you did before you're doing this. I don't know when that was. But yeah, good job. I would say let's just try reducing volume a little bit, and let me know how that feels, because I bet you'll be able to go harder. Good. Yeah, I think overhead press is really good. Sorry, I didn't see it in here. I was looking, maybe I didn't see it yet. Oh, there it is. Yeah, maybe that's marine press. I think that's what you were referring to. I can't do with the combos. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I'd say you're probably getting pretty biceped out too, because just on your back and bicep day, You've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. You've got 18 sets of bi already, which is fine. Which is honestly fine if you're going for more of a cardio-based like adaptation. But I don't think that's probably not what your goal is. You're probably trying to get a little bit stronger. So I think recommendations are decrease volume a little bit so that we can increase our intensity, because you'll be there less time in the gym, but you'll get better, if not the same. Sorry to remember. Okay. If we can decrease volume a little bit and increase intensity, you're going to spend less time in the gym, which is good. And you're going to get equal or better gains from that. And I think those are both things you could appreciate. Yeah, and definitely, I mean, none of these exercises are bad. I just think you're doing so much that you're probably just spending a lot of your time tired and not able to do a whole lot. Arnie's overhead too. Okay, yeah. Yes, people have different names for stuff that I don't always recognize. But yeah, good stuff. I think on some of the conventional or some of the compound movements, you could like deadlift, you're doing sets of 10. You could maybe go just a little heavier and do like sets of 5 or something like that. Same with bench, because it's good to if you're trying to stay like with some variety. Those are good suggestions. Cool. I need to eat some breakfast before my class. So thank you to those that were watching. Jordan, I hope that was helpful. Rachel, if you're still here. Shout out Rachel. Gonna shut this down in a second. What class do I have been of today? Health promotion. All right. Peace out.